It's time for our In the Turn interview, sponsored by Distinctive Auto Body. Born in Batesville, Arkansas, he began his racing career on the dirt tracks in Arkansas. He moved on to the asphalt racing and joined the ASA Racing Series, racing against names like Trickle, Sauter, Scheer, and Allison. He won the 1977 ASA National Tour Rookie of the Year and would go on to win 22 ASA races and 4 championships in 78, 79, 80, and 86. He has the second most wins all time in what is now known as the Xfinity Series with 49 and 40 Cup Series wins. He scored his second NASCAR. He was second in the NASCAR Cup standings 5 times, third in the Cup standings 4 times, and has been described by ESPN as the best driver not to win a championship. He also collected 5 IROC championships, more than any other driver. During the 2005 season, he took over the all-time record for IROC wins with 13. NASCAR Hall of Famer, class of 2017, Mark Martin joins us. Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's really going to be fun to be with you guys here.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on up here in the Northeast. So let's get right into things. Mark, tell the listeners how you caught the racing bug.
Oh, man. It was kind of ingrained into my DNA from my father. He didn't race, but he drove fast and was a fan, and I grew up the same way. That was what we shared, enthusiasm for was fast cars and motorcycles and stuff like that. So it was just, it was just kind of ingrained into me and passed along by my dad, and that's how we got started. You just on the dirt, in the local dirt track there in Arkansas is how we got started.
All right. Well, I was hoping you could tell us about those early ASA days and your success there, and how dominant you were.
Well, in 76, it was my third year to race, and it was I was racing a late model on dirt, and we just were successful enough that it didn't make sense to stay on the dirt because we were having to travel outside the state to be challenged enough to really make us step up with our game. So we always wanted to race against a lot of competition. So we built a asphalt car. Actually went and got a Ed Howe chassis and built a nice. Well, it wasn't really all that nice, but built us an asphalt car and just waded into it. And we got about halfway through the season, and I was finishing up high school. About the time I graduated from high school and all that stuff, I got a phone call from Rex Robbins, who was owned the ASA Series, and said, "Hey, man, you're a shoe-in for the ASA Rookie of the Year. You've got enough points, but you have to run the rest of the races on the schedule to be eligible, because you had to race like half the schedule or something." So now I was in a position where I could travel and go to the Minnesota State Fair and the Winchester 400 and some of those races like that, and take all the final races in. And so we won the Rookie of the Year and in 77, and set our sights for the championship in 78. And in 78 we did okay. We really worked on consistency. I was just a kid, and I was racing against the greats like Bob Seneker and Mike Eddy and Dick Trickle and all those guys. And I really wasn't better than them. We just put an awful lot of effort into being consistent and controlling our bad days. And so we managed to win the championship, and so heck, it was 79, we just had to back it up. In 80, we had to back it up. And then in 81, I started dipping my toe in NASCAR and didn't run for the championship again, in 81. So it was the platform and the foundation that launched my NASCAR career for sure.
Yeah, speaking of your NASCAR career, we're going to jump ahead to, you drove for 4 different teams from 81 to 87. How did that help shape your career?
Yeah, I failed. I failed. I built a Cup car and did 5 races in '81 with my guys, my ASA guys. None of us had ever been into the pits or garage area of a NASCAR race before. And we went down in our 3rd race. We sat on the pole, and we ran 11th, and then we ran 7th in the 4th race, and then and sat on the pole, and then we finished 3rd at Martinsville. And I just thought, hey, this is going to be a breeze. It's not going to be any harder than going ASA racing. You know, I'm not worried about going up against Junior Johnson and Moore and all these, these greats in NASCAR. And I was wrong. Boy, was I a dumbass. Man, oh man, they handed it right to me and broke me. And I tried to catch some rides, but I couldn't make any magic happen. So I had to have an auction and sell off everything I owned, because I'd owned all my own stuff, equipment prior to that. And I had to sell everything and pay off all my bills, and I had to go back up north and start all over again in ASA racing and start from scratch.
Wow! So, 1988, you started you started driving for Jack Roush. In your 19 seasons, you collected 35 of your Cup Series wins, 41 of your Busch Series wins, and all 7 Craftsman Truck Series wins. What do you accredit your success with Jack to?
Oh, God, that's a complicated story. Unless you got till tomorrow.
Wow.
I will say this. Jack Roush he had the eye for talent and people who wanted it desperately. And that was real important to him. And he would give someone who wanted it really, really, really bad, he would give them the tools. He would give them the tools to succeed. And he did that for me, he did it for so many other, Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch, and so you kind of held your own destiny in your own hands, because you could, Jeff Burke, you could define your program. You could define the cars. You had a lot of say in all that. And so Jack was the ideal guy for me, because I was a car guy and would rather been able to define my own program rather than have to drive somebody's program that I didn't necessarily agree with it. And so Jack Roush is a superhero for sure.
All right. In 1993, you had a strong summer run. You won at the Glen, Michigan, Bristol, and Darlington. What led to that hot streak and that dominance that year?
Crazy, man. So we had been a little bit behind on getting the rake in the bodies, getting the quarter panels high, and getting the roof down low and the nose super low. And so I went to Jack in May, and I told him that I wanted to leave. That I knew I had a contract, but I wanted to leave at the end of '93, and he wanted to know why. I said, because I can't get bodies put on the race cars like I want. I can't get what I want. And he said, well, yes, you can. And so we went in and had what some of the guys call Black Tuesday, which we went into the shop and told them that they were going to do, hang the bodies like this and whatnot. And so once they got those bodies, where they needed to be, we went on a rant of 4 in a row, and then heck, we went to Richmond for the 5th one in a row, and I was leading halfway through the race. I was leading half a lap ahead and just riding around, had them killed, and the track just changed, and we wound up not being fast enough to win, but it looked like we were going to do 5 in a row there for a long time that Saturday night.
Excellent. 94, you finished second in the Cup Series points behind Dale Earnhardt. Unfortunately, a slip-up in the Busch Series at Bristol that year really stands out. Tell us a little bit about that incident coming to the white flag and what led to the mishap.
Well, the caution came out, and as soon as the caution came out, that meant the race was going to finish under the yellow. So my work was done to some degree, but not really, because as you see, I didn't win the race, so I lost it. I gave it away. But I immediately came on the radio and started telling. Back then, they had the last Cup final practice after the Busch race. And so I told Steve, I come on the radio and said, Steve, raise the Panhard bar an inch on both sides, because we were going to be short on time. If you won the race, you had to do the victory lane ceremony and all that, and you'd miss some of the first practice, that last practice, to get your Cup car dialed in. And I was all 100% focused now on trying to get the win in the Cup car the next day. And I screwed up, and I owned it. So it was the stupidest thing that anybody ever, could do, and it is, and I am that stupid, and I did it.
Well, speaking of mishaps, one of my standout memories of you racing is a little accident that happened at Talladega where you skewered your car on the pit wall. That must have been one of your most incredible wrecks because it missed you. It missed the fuel cell. What was that like getting out of that car that day?
You must be talking about 2012 at Michigan when the pit wall penetrated the car so bad. Yeah, that was.
I was talking to the guys before and we thought it was Talladega. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he meant the one where you went straight through the fence and all the way through the infield.
Yeah, I went through that at Talladega.
Right.
In '94, and that was the guardrail. And I was horrified of guardrails because Larry Degens had been killed by a guardrail at Kaukauna. And, Larry was a tremendous competitor of mine coming up. And so I was always afraid of guardrails. And, there was a wreck in the tri-oval, and they hit me in the right front, broke the brake rotor, and knocked me sideways. And I had no brakes, and I couldn't get the car to quit sliding sideways. I couldn't get it to change attitude or anything. So it finally turned straight right before going through the guardrail, and I thought I was going to die, obviously. And then I went through the guardrail and went on through a chain-link fence, and that was one hell of a scary deal, but it wasn't anything compared to the next race we got there, and when I left pit road and looked over there at that guardrail and that fence, it was concrete. They put a concrete wall there. And I'm 100% positive that if it would have been a concrete wall when I hit it, you would not be speaking to me right now.
Wow.
That's insane.
There's no possible way I could have survived that.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is.
In 1998, you had your best season as you scored 7 wins, 22 top 5s, 26 top 10s, and 3 poles with an average finish of 8.64. What's a quick memory that stands out to you about that 1998 season that you think back to today?
Well, the biggest thing I think of is, we had a great year. Won 7 races in the All-Star race, but it still wasn't good enough. Jeff Gordon won 13 races. And so between Gordon and I, we won 20 of the 32 races that year. And it wasn't enough, and that was the story of me in championships. We did some phenomenal things, but they were never enough. I got beat. I lost championships to Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, and Jimmy Johnson. And I'm going to tell you, there ain't nothing to be ashamed about. Those are 4 of the greatest race car drivers that ever, started a NASCAR race. So,
yeah, they were.
I can't complain. I've certainly had a great career and got to work with a lot of great people.
Now, you mentioned, obviously, being runner-up in the Cup Series championship a couple times, and obviously it happened at the Daytona 500. If you could pick one, what would you take, a championship or a 500 win?
A championship.
He was quick with that one.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
Yep. All right, so
that distinguishes you.
Oh yeah.
As a NASCAR great, and a great above all greats. That does, and by many fans today, I don't fit into the NASCAR great category just for that one reason. Now, any fan who knows the entire body of my work, they feel differently about that. But some people just can't get past that. If you didn't win a championship, you weren't shit, and that's a shame, because you could have one particular spectacular year and win a championship and not have a tremendously great career. And I know of some examples of that, and I wouldn't trade the success that I had for a championship. But if I could have had one more thing, the only thing that was my consolation was being inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame as early as I was, when so many of my heroes and greats, NASCAR greats, had not gotten in yet. It just didn't make sense to me. It was mind-boggling, and that was the crown jewel of my career, was being inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and to be recognized, for the body of work and not for any particular, lucky year or lucky race or anything else, but just the entire body of work.
So anybody that knows you on social media knows how much you love the RV. And I have to know, where are you going to go this year? What's the plans? And you should, sometimes run a modified sometime down here at Stafford and maybe do a little SRX racing. What do you think?
I'm not going to drive a race car ever again.
Okay.
So that's out. I flipped the switch off. When I got out of a race car, I'm done. I'm happy for these guys. I'm happy for Red Farmer, that's 90 and still racing his late model dirt car. I love it. I'm happy. I'm happy for Ken Schrader. All these guys that want to race, good for it. But I don't want to race anymore. It's not something that I ever did for fun. I did it because I love to win, and so that was kind of my thing. And I'm not going to drive a race car anymore. It's time for me to enjoy other things in life. So, but I sure love to watch them. I'm a huge fan. I love motor coaching. I'm actually sitting in it right now.
Nice.
And and I love it. But I want to, while we're talking, I want to encourage all the listeners to go to markmartinarchive.com. Or if you've got, speaking of social media, Mark Martin Archive on Instagram. My son runs that page, and he has, really done a great job of bringing a lot of material to the forefront that most people have never seen, and it's pretty interesting what he's doing, as well as the website. And also, we're in the middle of doing a book, and this is going to be a book that really tells about my life and about growing up and all of that. So pretty excited about that. I don't know, it's probably toward the end of the year, maybe first of next year before we get it published and out there. But we've got a lot of stuff in the works that has to do with historical things, like all the late model racing that I did and the ASA stuff, which is closest to my heart, because those ASA cars, had my handprints all over them. I hung all the bodies, I did all the chassis setups, I did all the tires, and I can tell you right now, if you show me a picture of a race in 1980 at some particular track, I can tell you what the entire setup is. I mean, it's it's what I live for. It's what I love. I didn't build NASCAR cars. I didn't work on them, and I didn't set them up. So, I don't have the same connection to the vehicles that I did those late models.
Well, that is a lot of
That was
awesome information there.
All right.
And I think, Mark, once the book comes out and the archives continue on, I think we're going to have you back on maybe later this year to talk about the new book whenever it's released. You got a spot here. So I got one final question for you, and we ask this of all our guests on the show, and we've had some great answers from them. When it's all said and done, how do you, Mark Martin, want to be remembered to the race fan?
Man, I just want to be remembered. That's what I've always said when I was asked that question. Shoot, I just want to be remembered.
Oh, you will.
Absolutely.
You will.
Yeah, this just to be remembered. I've learned a lot about a lot more about the history of the sport than I knew when I was immersed in it, and I really appreciate the importance of our history, and just to be a small little part of the history of motorsports, is a true honor to me.
Well, Mark, I can say this. I work at a bar, and I've talked to a lot of people and mentioned that I was going to be doing this interview, and they remembered your name. So you are remembered.
You got three gentlemen right here that'll never ever forget Mark Martin.
All right, we're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break and come back on the other end of things and mention our sponsors. Then you're listening to Miles on Motorsports on 95.9 WATD.